Okay, Wednesday's practice. Thought the defense really practiced well today. A little bit different format after having a day off, unusual, but it was good. I thought they really came out, especially the defensive front, really physical, which is good to see because anytime you go on the road in a conference game, you're going to need that.
You talked about after the Stanford game how a couple spots on the offensive line are going to be more competitive. You're going to look at them harder. What's the latest with that? Has Andre stepped up well?
Yeah, Andre did, as we talked about in the game. Played his best game by far last week, but we opened it up again this week, and we've split the reps right down the middle. Haven't made a decision on the game yet.
Last season, Utah was definitely a running team. John White ran for 1,500 yards. He was one of the conference's leading rushers. This year, they're kind of struggling to find their identity. How does he play into your schemes this week?
Well, I think it sounds like he's going to be healthy, first off. He hasn't been healthy. And they're breaking in some new offensive linemen and losing their two tackles, which are really good players. It's going to affect anybody. And so I think they're just going through the growing pains of new guys in there and a running back not healthy. So I'm sure they'll be ready for us and he'll be healthy.
It seemed like after their last game that Kyle Whittingham was talking about this maybe being some sort of a turning point or crossroads point for them. I'm sure you don't like it when the other team comes off a loss like that, right?
Yeah, sometimes it goes one or two ways. Sometimes teams go in the tank, but sometimes it brings teams closer together when you don't play a game that you're excited about how you did, much like what happened to us. And we had our best week of practice after our loss. So, and I don't think that matters anyway. I think it's the SC factor that we've talked about before. When you go into somebody else's place, it's going to be their biggest game of the year, and they're going to be up for it. And just in the Pac-12 media days, remembering how many Salt Lake radio stations, TV stations were down here, and it was the first thing they said, this is going to be the biggest game in the history of the school.
Is that amplified even more because it's a Thursday night, primetime national game, all that stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think that any time that there's no other games going and everybody's going to watch you, it becomes more of a statement game for the team that's considered to be the underdog.
Did you watch see any of the West Virginia game, or conscious of what Geno Smith did as an offensive coordinator? What's kind of your reaction?
Yeah, I kind of saw the numbers as it was going on. I don't know how you do that. It's just amazing. I was talking to Woody and Marquise and said, it's hard to do that on air, versus a service team, where 5 incompletions and those type of numbers, just really amazing.
With this week kind of like just being out of routine, how do you keep your guys just kind of in check?
Yeah, we've done our best just really to coach extremely hard and really get on them and make sure that they felt our intensity out here, and I think our staff's done a good job of that.
The 3 teams you've beaten haven't had a win against FBS teams. Does that make it harder to evaluate yourself at all when that happens?
No. Like I've said before, I think that comparing games and who you play and this team play that, I just don't think that means very much. We shouldn't go play Washington then because we're going to lose because they beat Stanford, we lost to Stanford. So we just don't get into that because every game's different and the SC factor as well for teams.
How do you get Robert going?
Throwing the ball more early, would help. Teams have done a good job of taking him away. Even though his numbers aren't as big as they have been before, teams are still game planning for these 2 receivers. So, hopefully for the passing game, the defense has changed. If not, then the games will go like they did last week.
Has Robert looked off to you at all? Rusty? Anything coming off, that injury that he had, the surgery that he had?
Well, I think, anytime that a guy never really practices a full week, which he doesn't, there's always a day that we have to give him off. And it's usually a Wednesday or a Thursday, just depends on how he's feeling and what part of the game plan's in that day. It's going to affect you, but it is where it is.
Is the F receiver spot something that's going to become more of a rotation, or does it seem like Nelson?
Well, Nelson has it right now. Hopefully George Farmer will come back and get into that mix. And, but Nelson's doing really well.